how the soul recognizes true love. Siggins from the unconscious. Have you ever met someone and felt something that words simply couldn't explain? Not excitement, not infatuation, not the fleeting rush of attraction, but a quiet certainty, as though a part of you had known them long before your eyes ever met. What if that feeling wasn't random? What if, beneath the noise of everyday thoughts, your unconscious was recognizing something your logical mind had not yet discovered? The deepest truths about love are rarely shouted. They are whispered in moments of stillness, carried through intuition, inner peace, meaningful dreams, unexpected memories, and an unshakable sense of familiarity. Long before the mind gathers evidence, the heart often senses a connection that feels genuine. But how can you tell the difference between true love and mere emotional longing? How does the soul recognize a bond that nurtures growth rather than illusion? Today, we are exploring one of the most fascinating mysteries of human existence: how the soul recognizes true love. Signs from the unconscious. Together, we'll uncover the hidden language of intuition, the silent wisdom buried beneath conscious thought, and the subtle signs that may reveal when love is inviting you toward authenticity, healing, and a deeper understanding of yourself. Stay with me until the very end, because what you discover today may forever change the way you recognize love, not as something you chase, but as something you learn to recognize with clarity, wisdom, and an open heart. True love is recognized before it is explained. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone entered your life, and without any logical reason, you felt an immediate sense of peace? It wasn't based on appearance, status, or the amount of time you had known them. Instead, there was a quiet certainty within you that seemed impossible to explain. This is one of the most fascinating ways the unconscious mind operates. Long before your conscious thoughts begin evaluating compatibility, your deeper mind is already processing countless subtle signals: tone of voice, emotional presence, body language, shared values expressed through conversation, and even how safe you feel in someone's company. Sometimes people describe this as the soul recognizing true love. Whether you understand it as intuition, emotional wisdom, or the unconscious integrating years of lived experience, the feeling can be remarkably powerful. Unlike infatuation, which often creates urgency, anxiety, and a desperate need for certainty, genuine love frequently begins with an unexpected calmness, does not demand immediate answers or dramatic declarations. Instead, it quietly invites trust to grow over time. The unconscious stores memories, emotional lessons, hopes, disappointments, and patterns gathered throughout your life. While these experiences can help you recognize healthy relationships, they can also be influenced by old wounds or familiar habits. That is why self-awareness is essential. A strong feeling alone is not proof that someone is the right partner. Rather, it is an invitation to pay closer attention. As the relationship unfolds, observe whether that initial sense of peace is supported by consistent kindness, honest communication, mutual respect, and emotional reliability. True love reveals itself through actions that align with words, not through promises alone. One of the greatest misunderstandings about love is the belief that it must always be overwhelming or dramatic. Movies and social media often celebrate emotional chaos, confusing intensity with depth, yet lasting love is usually much quieter. It creates space for authenticity instead of performance. You feel less pressure to impress and more freedom to be yourself. Conversations become easier because you are not constantly trying to earn acceptance. Silence feels comfortable rather than awkward because emotional safety has begun to replace fear. This is often a sign that the unconscious recognizes something healthy, a relationship where you can grow instead of constantly defending yourself. At the same time, wisdom asks us to remain grounded. Even when your intuition feels strong, allow time to reveal character. Healthy love is patient enough to be tested by everyday life. It survives honest conversations, disagreements handled with respect, shared responsibilities, and moments when life becomes difficult. If the early feeling of peace continues to be confirmed by consistent care, accountability, and compassion, confidence in the relationship naturally deepens. True love does not require abandoning reason. Instead, it invites intuition and wisdom to work together. Your unconscious may open the door by drawing your attention to someone who feels deeply familiar or emotionally safe, but your conscious choices determine whether that connection develops into a relationship built on trust, integrity, and genuine commitment. When both your inner awareness and lived experience point in the same direction, love becomes something more than a fleeting emotion. It becomes a steady presence that allows both people to flourish while remaining fully themselves. True love is recognized before it is explained. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone entered your life and, without any logical reason, you felt an immediate sense of peace? It wasn't based on appearance, status, or the amount of time you had known them. Instead, there was a quiet certainty within you that seemed impossible to explain. This is one of the most fascinating ways the unconscious mind operates. Long before your conscious thoughts begin evaluating compatibility, your deeper mind is already processing countless subtle signals. Tone of voice, emotional presence, body language, shared values expressed through conversation, and even how safe you feel in someone's company. Sometimes people describe this as the soul recognizing true love. Whether you understand it as intuition, emotional wisdom, or the unconscious integrating years of lived experience, the feeling can be remarkably powerful. Unlike infatuation, which often creates urgency, anxiety, and a desperate need for certainty, genuine love frequently begins with an unexpected calmness. It does not demand immediate answers or dramatic declarations. Instead, it quietly invites trust to grow over time. The unconscious stores memories, emotional lessons, hopes, disappointments, and patterns gathered throughout your life. While these experiences can help you recognize healthy relationships, they can also be influenced by old wounds or familiar habits. That is why self-awareness is essential. A strong feeling alone is not proof that someone is the right partner. Rather, it is an invitation to pay closer attention. As the relationship unfolds, observe whether that initial sense of peace is supported by consistent kindness, honest communication, mutual respect, and emotional reliability. True love reveals itself through actions that align with words, not through promises alone. One of the greatest misunderstandings about love is the belief that it must always be overwhelming or dramatic. Movies and social media often celebrate emotional chaos, confusing intensity with depth, yet lasting love is usually much quieter. It creates space for authenticity instead of performance. You feel less pressure to impress and more freedom to be yourself. Conversations become easier because you are not constantly trying to earn acceptance. Silence feels comfortable rather than awkward because emotional safety has begun to replace fear. This is often a sign that the unconscious recognizes something healthy, a relationship where you can grow instead of constantly defending yourself. At the same time, wisdom asks us to remain grounded. Even when your intuition feels strong, allow time to reveal character. Healthy love is patient enough to be tested by everyday life. It survives honest conversations, disagreements handled with respect, shared responsibilities, and moments when life becomes difficult. If the early feeling of peace continues to be confirmed by consistent care, accountability, and compassion, confidence in the relationship naturally deepens. True love does not require abandoning reason. Instead, it invites intuition and wisdom to work together. Your unconscious may open the door by drawing your attention to someone who feels deeply familiar or emotionally safe. But your conscious choices determine whether that connection develops into a relationship built on trust, integrity, and genuine commitment. When both your inner awareness and lived experience point in the same direction, love becomes something more than a fleeting emotion. It becomes a steady presence that allows both people to flourish while remaining fully themselves. The unconscious removes fear when love is real. One of the clearest signs that love is genuine is not that every fear instantly disappears, but that fear gradually loses its power over your thoughts, emotions, and decisions. Every person carries an invisible collection of memories shaped by childhood experiences, friendships, disappointments, heartbreaks, and moments of both trust and betrayal. These experiences become part of the unconscious mind, quietly influencing how we approach relationships. They can cause us to expect rejection where none exists, to misunderstand kindness as manipulation, or to mistake emotional distance for safety. When authentic love enters our lives, however, something remarkable begins to happen. Rather than demanding perfection, healthy love creates an environment where old fears can be acknowledged without controlling the future. The unconscious slowly learns a new emotional pattern. Instead of constantly preparing for loss, it begins recognizing consistency. Instead of anticipating criticism, it notices acceptance. Instead of expecting abandonment, it experiences reliability. This transformation rarely happens overnight. It unfolds through countless ordinary moments, a promise that is kept, a difficult conversation handled with respect, an apology that is sincere, a disagreement resolved without humiliation, or the quiet reassurance that someone remains present even when life becomes challenging. These repeated experiences gradually teach the unconscious that not every relationship follows the painful patterns of the past. This does not mean that fear vanishes completely or that relationships become free from misunderstandings. Rather, fear no longer dictates every reaction. You become more willing to communicate honestly instead of assuming the worst. You begin asking questions rather than making fearful conclusions. Trust grows because it is supported by consistent actions rather than wishful thinking. It is also important to recognize that the unconscious can sometimes confuse familiarity with safety. People occasionally feel drawn toward relationships that repeat old emotional patterns simply because they are familiar, even when those patterns are unhealthy. This is why reflection and emotional growth are so valuable. Genuine love should not require constant anxiety, emotional exhaustion, or the sacrifice of your well being. While every relationship faces challenges, authentic love encourages security instead of prolonged uncertainty. It allows both individuals to express vulnerability without fear of ridicule and to maintain healthy boundaries without fear of rejection. As emotional safety increases, many people notice unexpected changes within themselves. They become more patient, more compassionate, more confident, and more capable of offering love without constantly seeking reassurance. The unconscious begins replacing defensive habits with healthier responses because it has accumulated enough evidence trust is possible. This inner shift often feels like a burden has quietly lifted. You no longer spend every moment searching for hidden motives or waiting for disaster. Instead, your attention turns toward building something meaningful together. Yet wisdom reminds us that love is not measured only by feelings of comfort. It is also demonstrated through integrity, accountability, and mutual effort. A relationship becomes truly secure when both people consistently choose honesty, respect, empathy, and personal growth. The unconscious recognizes these repeated patterns and gradually rewrites old expectations with healthier ones. In this way, authentic love becomes more than an emotional experience. It becomes a healing influence that gently transforms fear into confidence, suspicion into trust, and self-protection into the courage to love with both openness and discernment. When fear no longer leads your heart, you are free to recognize love not as something that rescues you from life, but as something that helps you become more whole within it. Inner alignment creates outer recognition. Before we can fully recognize genuine love in another person, we must first become aligned with the truth of who we are. The unconscious mind is constantly shaping how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. It stores our deepest beliefs about worthiness, acceptance, trust, and belonging, and these beliefs quietly influence the relationships we notice, the people we feel drawn toward, and the choices we make. If someone has spent years believing they are unworthy of love, they may overlook healthy relationships because genuine kindness feels unfamiliar, or they may become attracted to inconsistent attention because it reflects patterns they have known before. On the other hand, as self-awareness grows and limiting beliefs begin to change, the unconscious also changes the way it recognizes and responds to potential relationships. This process is what we can describe as inner alignment. It is the gradual harmony between your values, your self-understanding, your emotional health, and the life you are choosing to build. When this alignment deepens, your perception becomes clearer. You no longer evaluate love solely by excitement or chemistry, but by qualities that sustain a lasting relationship. Honesty, emotional maturity, mutual respect, shared purpose, kindness, and consistency. This shift often feels as though your soul has become better at recognizing true love, but in reality, your unconscious has learned to notice healthier patterns. Because your inner world has evolved, you begin to understand that real love does not require pretending to be someone else. It does not ask you to hide your personality, silence your voice, or constantly earn approval. Instead, authentic love creates space for honesty, growth, and mutual encouragement. As your inner beliefs become healthier, you naturally become more comfortable expressing your thoughts, communicating your needs respectfully, and establishing boundaries that protect your well-being. These changes influence the kinds of relationships you build, because healthy people are generally drawn to authenticity rather than performance. It is important to remember that inner alignment does not mean becoming perfect before you deserve love. Every person continues learning, growing, and overcoming challenges throughout life. Instead, alignment means moving toward greater emotional honesty and allowing your actions to reflect your deepest values. The unconscious responds powerfully to repeated experiences. Every time you choose self-respect over self-neglect, honesty over pretense, forgiveness over bitterness, and wisdom over fear, you reinforce healthier patterns within yourself. Over time, these patterns become the foundation from which you recognize and nurture meaningful relationships. This also helps you distinguish between temporary attraction and lasting compatibility. Attraction may capture your attention for a moment, but compatibility built upon shared values and mutual respect strengthens love through the ordinary seasons of life. True love is strengthened not only during joyful moments, but also through challenges, disagreements, responsibilities, and change. When your inner world is aligned with integrity, patience, compassion, and self-respect, you are better equipped to recognize these qualities in another person. The unconscious is no longer searching merely for what feels familiar. It begins recognizing what is genuinely healthy and life-giving. In this way, your inner transformation influences your outer experiences. As your understanding of yourself becomes clearer, your ability to recognize authentic love also becomes clearer. You stop chasing relationships that leave you uncertain and begin valuing those that offer peace, trust, emotional safety, and shared growth. Ultimately, the journey toward true love is not only about finding the right person. It is also about becoming someone whose inner life is aligned with the kind of love that is built on authenticity, wisdom, compassion, and mutual commitment. Meaningful patterns reveal the soul's direction. One of the most remarkable qualities of the unconscious mind is its ability to notice patterns long before our conscious awareness fully understands them. Every day we encounter thousands of experiences, conversations, emotions, and observations, many of which never reach our deliberate attention. Yet the unconscious quietly gathers these pieces, searching for meaning and helping us recognize what deserves closer reflection. This is why certain dreams remain vivid long after we wake, why a particular conversation keeps returning to our thoughts, or why we suddenly remember a lesson from years ago at exactly the moment we need it. Some people describe these moments as signs from the soul, while others see them as the mind connecting meaningful experiences in ways that guide personal growth. Whatever language we use, these inner experiences often encourage us to slow down and pay attention rather than rush toward conclusions. They are invitations to become more aware of ourselves, our values, and the relationships we are building. At times, meaningful patterns may appear through recurring themes in your life. You may repeatedly notice the importance of honesty, emotional safety, forgiveness, or mutual respect because these qualities are becoming central to your understanding of love. A dream might remind you of an unresolved emotion that deserves healing. A memory may surface not to keep you trapped in the past, but to help you recognize how much you have grown. An unexpected feeling of peace in someone's presence may encourage you to observe the relationship with greater openness, while still allowing time for trust to develop naturally. It is important, however, to approach these experiences with both curiosity and discernment. Not every coincidence carries a hidden message, and not every strong emotion predicts the future. Human beings naturally seek patterns, and sometimes we can assign meaning too quickly, especially when we deeply desire a particular outcome. Wisdom invites us to appreciate intuition while also testing it against reality. If you believe a relationship is meaningful, let that belief be strengthened by consistent actions, honest communication, mutual respect, and shared responsibility, rather than by symbols or impressions alone. The healthiest relationships are confirmed through everyday choices, not only extraordinary moments. The unconscious also helps us recognize patterns within ourselves. Perhaps you notice that you repeatedly avoid vulnerability, become anxious when someone cares for you, or expect disappointment before it happens. These recurring reactions are valuable because they reveal opportunities for healing and personal growth. Rather than judging yourself for these patterns, you can view them as signals pointing toward areas where compassion and understanding are needed. As these inner patterns begin to change, your relationships often change as well, because you respond from greater emotional freedom rather than automatic habit. This process allows your perception of love to become clearer and more balanced. You begin recognizing the difference between emotional intensity and emotional security, between temporary excitement and lasting character, between fantasy and genuine partnership. In many ways, the unconscious acts like a quiet guide, encouraging reflection without forcing conclusions. It gently draws your attention toward what aligns with your deepest values while reminding you to remain patient, thoughtful, and grounded. True love is rarely recognized through one dramatic sign alone. More often, it becomes clear through a series of meaningful experiences that consistently point in the same direction: kindness repeated over time, trust earned through reliability, understanding demonstrated during conflict, and encouragement offered through every season of life. When these patterns continue to unfold with integrity and mutual care, the soul no longer searches for certainty in extraordinary signs, because it has already found confidence in the ordinary faithfulness of authentic love. True love awakens your highest self. Perhaps the greatest sign that the soul has recognized true love is not simply the joy of finding another person, but the quiet transformation that begins within you. Genuine love has a unique way of awakening qualities that may have been hidden beneath fear, disappointment, or self-doubt. Instead of asking you to become someone different to earn affection, authentic love creates an environment where you feel increasingly free to become the best version of yourself. The unconscious mind responds powerfully to experiences of acceptance, respect, encouragement, and emotional safety. As these experiences are repeated, old beliefs that once whispered, "You are not enough," gradually lose their influence. In their place, new beliefs begin to grow, beliefs rooted in confidence, self-respect, compassion, and hope. This inner transformation is one of the clearest indicators that a relationship is contributing to your well-being rather than diminishing it. Healthy love does not demand perfection. It recognizes that every person carries strength, weaknesses, dreams, and imperfections. Instead of using flaws as weapons, it treats them as opportunities for understanding, patience, and mutual growth. In such an environment, you become more willing to communicate honestly, admit mistakes, offer forgiveness, and continue learning together. The unconscious gradually shifts from operating in self-protection to embracing emotional openness, because it has accumulated repeated evidence that vulnerability is being met with care rather than rejection. This change often affects every area of life. You may find yourself becoming more patient with others, more focused on your goals, more willing to care for your physical and emotional health, and more hopeful about the future. Authentic love encourages responsibility rather than dependency. It inspires you to pursue your purpose while also supporting the dreams of the person beside you. Instead of losing your identity within the relationship, you discover it more clearly. Your individuality is not erased. It is strengthened through mutual respect and encouragement. It is also important to remember that no relationship can replace the personal work of growth and healing. A loving partner can support you, but they cannot carry the responsibility for your happiness, self-worth, or emotional development. Likewise, you cannot expect another person to complete you in every way. Healthy relationships flourish when two people bring a willingness to grow, communicate, and care for one another while also taking responsibility for their own emotional lives. The unconscious recognizes this balance because it experiences love not as possession but as partnership. Over time, the relationship becomes a place where both individuals inspire one another to become wiser, kinder, and more resilient. Challenges still arise, disagreements still happen, and difficult seasons still come, but these moments become opportunities to strengthen trust rather than destroy it. The relationship is built not on the illusion of perfection, but on the daily practice of integrity, empathy, forgiveness, and commitment. When you look back, you realize that the greatest gift of true love was never simply the excitement of falling in love. It was the person you gradually became because of the healthy environment that love helped create. Your unconscious recognizes this profound change long before you can fully describe it. It notices that you are no longer driven primarily by fear but by purpose, not by insecurity but by confidence, not by the need to prove your worth, but by the freedom to live it. In the end, true love is not measured only by how deeply someone loves you, it is also revealed by how consistently that love encourages you to grow in wisdom, character, compassion, and authenticity, allowing both hearts to flourish together while remaining fully and beautifully themselves.